We'll see where the conversation goes. You're all here now, it looks like. So you ready to get started?
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right.
Yeah, good for me.
So my first question, I like to ask a few things here. Obviously, we are not at Spaceport America launching a rocket in 105-degree Fahrenheit New Mexico desert heat. But I want you all to imagine that you are there in the desert and you've brought your rocket and you have your procedures and you're assembling it. And what goes wrong and what do you do about it?
What goes wrong and what do we do about it? Well, first off, in our first year and going into our second year, we always had plans to have very in-depth procedure plans, and in those we always tried to integrate like as much what ifs as you say like into the procedures. So what if the safety pin does not come out on rail, right? Like what do we do then? And then the procedure would go into a subsection and we would have to follow that and complete whatever tasks are necessary to safely de-arm everything, right? And take the procedures that Spaceport would have in place as well to get that done. Or do you mean more so on the side of launching the rocket or more so on the side of like health and safety?
Well,
Or everything in general?
failure modes of the rocket were my next question. So the first one, I'm just wondering, how you tackle assembling the rocket and what challenges you've seen and how you have counteracted them. Obviously, the procedures and safety concerns you have are part of that. But I want to know if you have anything more to add on that topic.
Um, for assembly, our rocket is fairly modular, so our plan is to come to competition with it in 2 to 3 sections, and those sections just integrate and lock together with bolts. Um, Two parts are mostly with steel bolts, but also the upper and lower sections bolt together with nylon shearing bolts that hold it together until our parachutes are deployed. But it's modular and it should fit in like a crate. I guess it would be about. Will could probably correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think it would be about 5 feet long by maybe uh, like 3 feet wide ish.
It could be even smaller if we wanted, but yeah.
And so then to continue it on to the next phase of what the competition would be, you get the rocket on the rail, it launches. What failure modes do you think are most likely, and what are the consequences?
The failure modes, I would say, most likely in our rocket. It would probably be on integration of subsystems. So anywhere where, just for example, where our avionics connects to our recovery charges. Um, and the only reason of concern that is right now is because we haven't been able to do in-person testing, because to safely do that, we need more people around, or we feel that anyway, and our university doesn't permit that. But I think with ample testing, um, that concern would go away, at least be mitigated, anyways, before competition. I will invite my subsystem leads to chime in if there are any other concerns that they can think of during flight.
Um, yeah, I'd say the main operational risk would probably be surrounding, say, apogee detection and recovery of the rocket, just because that includes so many different subsystems, or it includes the most subsystems, I suppose, um, since it incorporates the airframe recovery system and avionics system. And again, with the current situation and the inability to do, I guess, proper testing of all those systems, especially together, that does kind of present the highest risk to us. Obviously, another risk might be uh, during launch of the rocket if anything goes wrong there with the arming of the system, although we have uh, accounted for that with redundancies. And we have accounted for risks with the recovery with redundancies as well. such as using two tender descenders.
And now let's consider, obviously, we're not launching this year, but hopefully you guys or a team that follows you will be coming down the Spaceport America Cup next year and then launching your rocket or a new project. What have you guys done to capture the lessons you've learned from this year or in other experiences in order to transmit that knowledge into the future?
So I would say the biggest takeaway that we've had is, and this is going to be kind of a running theme because we've only participated in the 2019 Spaceport America Cup where we had a nominal flight, but that was due to extreme amounts of work at competition and the following weeks beforehand. Like, I think there was a week where I got almost no sleep, like like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. But anyways, the testing is the biggest thing for us. So we're hoping that in the coming months, with vaccinations being rolled out fairly quickly in Manitoba, that we'll be able to get at least a couple students at our prototyping lab where we will be able to safely test our integration systems, our recovery charges, and our avionics system integration with our recovery system and with our apogee detection, just using like pressure methods and even just like simulating it using computers. But moving forwards, we're really hoping to get a ton of testing for every subsystem done as we build our 2022 spaceport rocket. And we're currently in the progress of building our 2021 Launch Canada rocket, which we're hoping to launch in October. And that's been a challenge, which we've been kind of grinding through and working with academic and industrial advisors on how to basically build a rocket from home, which has been a bit of a challenge so far, and especially with the supply chains being very full of backlogs, I would say, at least where we are. It's kind of hard, like trying to get stuff, and then as soon as you get stuff, you have to work on it individually at your own place and try to complete the processes that you need to do correctly. And subsystem leads, if there's anything that you guys can think of in regards to his question, fire away.
I was going to say one thing, just in terms of passing on legacy. Generally, I think it's a good idea to always have documentation, which includes like reflection and then like build processes as well. But more particular in terms of avionics, as our system has matured quite a bit since 2019, we've had quite a lot of complexity added to our avionics system. So our GitHub repositories have like full environment setups, as well as how to run our software and then testing documentation on top of that as well. That way, anyone, even if they're not an expert or if they're a first-year student, can pick up the documentation and then resume sort of where we left off.
Yeah, I just like to quickly add on to that. I think one of the things that we've kind of learned from 2019 and then also going forward is just the importance of project management and organization of all of our requirements and all that, and proper documentation, especially for moving forward. So, because our first year was pretty unorganized in terms of documentation, so we've improved on that and we're continuing to improve on that.
All right. Mark or John, any questions for them?
Yeah, I got one question. You have your the rocket motors, the M1450. Have y'all used that before?
So our first year we used an N-class motor, but I'll let Manuel Ratzlaff take this question.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, we're using an M1450 motor, and shorter answer is no, we haven't used it before. We don't have anyone in Manitoba at all that is level 3 certified, so we can't launch one of these motors. I mean, there's a possibility that we could like test it on a test stand without flying it, but we haven't used one of these motors before. Like
Okay.
this particular one. No.
Right. I really liked your video presentation, especially like when you had the what's it called? You had one pie chart showing like the margins of like error or risk. I like that in your presentation, but I also noticed at the end it kind of just stopped. Was there a conclusion at the end of your video?
I think we might have missed out a little bit wrapping it up at the end. When we made our video, we were we were actually kind of concerned about the 15-minute time limit, but we were well under that, so we never like budgeted for like I guess in our time for like a decent conclusion to wrap everything together, and then we just never made that. And we had a meeting the day after we submitted, and we had that exact same thing where we said in future we would definitely like to like bring this all together in the end and like state again our goal, right? Just like most conclusions would. That was a lessons learned thing.
Okay. Yeah, it was really good. I was like all into it, and all of a sudden it just like stopped. I'm like, okay, what's our conclusion? So, but yeah, it was well done.
It was a cliffhanger for you.
Yeah, I was like, where's the rest of it? So, no, it was really good though. I liked it. Thank you.
Have you driven that rover around on sand yet?
I'll let Kasim take this away, but we are currently in the process of making the Mark II rover. Our Mark 1 worked, but we didn't test it in any desert conditions or anything. So, Kasim, if you have any other comments on that.
Yeah, no, we're just you guys can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're just currently building it, and hopefully when we are finished, we are gonna like plan to do it in different scenarios where probably go to the sand dunes north. I think the snake pit, that's where it is. But other than that, yeah.
How do have you managed to, I forget if I've seen this, successfully deploy it from a landed rocket yet?
No, so Kasim might be able to touch on this more, but we are planning to do that next year. Right now, it has to be manually deployed. So since we're kind of in our early phases, we didn't have the manpower or the time, I believe, to actually put together and test a design to like deploy it automatically. So that's actually in our timeline for next year.
All right.
Yeah, that's one of our goals to like try to figure out how to do as well.
This is Mark. Regarding the open rocket simulation and your previous flight experience, were there any differences that were maybe unexpected that you applied to this design?
So just to clarify, I wasn't on the team for our first flight, but from my understanding, the first year when the simulations were done, there was some misunderstanding about how OpenRocket accounted for the masses. So I believe in the simulation, the weight of the motor was doubled up. So at competition, the target apogee was overshot by about 30%. But we believe we have fixed that this time. And in my own personal experiments with model rocketry, I've been able to get a better understanding of how the software works. So I believe we're on the right track there now. But yeah, I think I'm a little more experienced with OpenRocket than the previous lead was. So yeah, and we're also looking into some other simulation software. I believe for one of our advisors suggested we look at RAS Aero. So we're looking into that too.
Just to add on, oh, sorry, go ahead. Just to add on to what Manuel said, we like Manuel said, we do use OpenRocket pretty religiously, but we're hoping, like he said, to use RAS Aero and OpenRocket just to have that double up of kind of something to compare to, just because the best thing that we can do is simulations for our testing in terms of like M-class launches, because we don't have an L3 flyer or anywhere to launch right here in Manitoba. So our test flight is our flight, if that makes sense.
Yep. And I'm just looking at, looks at the bottom of the screen. We've got, is this Virginia Tech popping in and out? So we should probably be moving along in our inquiries of teams. Thank you so much, University of Manitoba.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any
Thank
other.
you, Mark. Thank you, Curtis. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Hopefully see you guys around.
Yep, next
Thank
year.
you, guys.
Yeah, hopefully.